I'm Maverick, just an average college student attending an agricultural university in the countryside. In the future, I plan to take over the family business in this rural town and help with the work at our family's orchard. I never really had a dream for the future, nor did I want to do anything in particular, and unlike the locals, I have no desire to yearn for the glittering city. Since I was young, I've been familiar with nature and have harbored a genuine interest and curiosity in plants and agriculture. Maverick, could you come here for a moment? Yes, Karen. You can call me Mom, you know. It's been 2 years since you came to this house. We're family, right? Yeah, sorry. It's just habit. I'm not blood related to my current family. Born in a small farming village, I lost my parents 2 years ago. It's an event from that day I'd rather not remember. While I was away at university, our house was broken into by a burglar. It was 2:30 p.m. Normally, both my parents would be working in the fields, and the house would be empty. But that day, they happened to take a late break and were relaxing at home. The burglar must have thought the house was empty and broken, but of course, ran into my parents. In the scuffle with my father, the burglar, who had a knife, attacked him. Then, as my mother tried to call for help, the burglar attacked her as well, injuring them both. A devil who took my parents' lives to satisfy his own desires. I can forgive that selfish murderer. Even if he is judged by the law, my deceased parents will never return. After the incident, I was taken in by distant relatives, the Johnsons. Apparently, the couple had always been unable to have children. My stepmother had always dreamed of being a mother, and when I became her stepson, she was overjoyed and told me so with a smile. Having a college-aged son suddenly might have been daunting, but the Johnsons were kind and warm people. Once Maverick graduates from college, our orchard will be secure. I'd be anxious to leave our precious grapes in the hands of just anyone. Now I can retire in peace. It seems my father was worried about the issue of succession, but he genuinely trusts me. Given such straightforward love, I earnestly feel that I want to respond to it. They provided for my tuition and living expenses and even gave me my own room, respecting whatever I wanted to do to the utmost. I want to repay them one day. With that in mind, I spend my days learning about agriculture and everything about orchard horticulture. I have no complaints about my life or situation, and there's nothing I particularly want. Since that event, I vowed not to be too ambitious. No matter how pure, righteous, and beautiful one lives their life, there are villains who trample on others' happiness with dirty feet everywhere. The day I lost my parents, my heart was filled with a sense of despair akin to resignation. I realized that efforts, dreams, and ambitions were meaningless. I decided to live the reality given to me, plainly. I honestly confided my feelings to my mother. Maverick, you're still young, so don't talk like an old manual. Your father wants you to take over the orchard. But if you have something else you want to do, you can always go to the city anytime, she said with kind words. In the quiet country town, where time flows slowly, such robbery incidents are rare. If there's a problem happening now, it would be the issue with Tyler. You know, I heard that Tyler's front yard is a mountain of trash again. Recently, the garbage has even piled up on a sidewalk, and it's becoming a problem in the neighborhood. Good grief. Not again. We just cleaned it up last month. One day on a weekend. After dinner, my father was relaxing in the living room, and I was absent-mindedly watching a baseball game on TV. While carrying a tray with 3D cups, my mother started talking about Tyler. It has become a custom for our family of 3 to spend about an hour together after dinner, but lately, our conversations have often revolved more around this issue than brighter topics. Tyler lives just a 4-minute walk from our house. He resides in a nearby single-family home. and he's one of the villagers who is shunned by the entire community. Really? I thought he was a nice guy until he lost his wife 3 years ago. I don't know how it turned into such a mess of garbage. With the mountain of trash in front of his house, the inside must be even worse. It's near our orchard, and there are customers around. So I wish he'd at least clean up the garbage spilling onto the sidewalk. Mom sighed deeply, and my father folded his newspaper in exasperation. Tyler's house is known in the neighborhood as a trash hoarder's house. The trash had piled up so much that it obstructed the passage, so a month ago, volunteers from the village gathered and removed all the garbage with a contracted company, but recently the scattering started again. It seems he's begun leaving his indoor trash bags outside, and the sidewalk is getting buried in garbage again. Despite Mom's involvement in the volunteer garbage disposal effort, it all seems to have been in vain. The neighbors are planning another cleanup mid-next month, but leaving it like that until then is problematic. We want to move at least some of the trash to the collection site. It's disheartening to see that mess. The smell is so bad it could twist your nose. Maverick, can you help your mom with the cleanup? Yeah, got it. It was a request from the parents I owe so much to. Of course, I nodded in agreement. On a day off from university lectures, I decided to go with my mother to Tyler's house. After about a 4-minute walk down a gentle slope, Tyler's single-family house comes into view. The house appears as a normal 2-story dwelling, but it's surrounded by mountains of trash bags, including recyclables like magazines, books, and newspapers, as well as larger items like bicycles and appliances. If we were to clean it all up, carrying the trash to the collection site would be quite a task. Luckily, the closest waste collection site is just down the slope, near the intersection ahead. Except for the heavy bulky waste, a few trips should be enough to tidy up a good portion. Normally, taking out the trash on designated days isn't too much of an effort for most people. Yet, for some reason, Tyler keeps accumulating garbage quickly. It seems he doesn't have the mindset to throw things away. You again. Don't come near my house. I kept my promise a month ago and got rid of only the unnecessary stuff. I won't forgive you if you touch my things again. Tyler, yes, I understand. We won't throw away anything necessary. Can we just clear the bags spilling onto the sidewalk? For the people who pass by. Mom smiled kindly and spoke to Tyler, who had appeared at his house. To clean up, it seems we first need to persuade Tyler. Tyler emerged from his house wearing a yellowed tank top and loose pants. Skillfully navigating through the garbage piled in front of his home, he approached us. Just standing here felt nauseating due to the stench, and the smell was so bad it was giving me a headache. But Mom maintained her smile even in this situation. Just a little bit is fine. You can keep everything inside and in front of your house. Can we just clean up the bags on the sidewalk? For the sake of people walking by. Don't treat my belongings like trash, you damn hag. Please, don't talk like that. Stop it, please. Tyler, ignoring Mom's suggestion, yelled and threw a plastic garbage bag at her. I instinctively stepped in front of Mom and deflected the garbage bag. What the hell, kid? Are you in the way too? Maverick, it's okay, I'm fine. If they are so important to you, don't throw them at people. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're causing others? I found myself stepping between Mom and Tyler, raising my voice in the heat of the moment. I was surprised at my own reaction, unable to control it. Tyler's incredibly selfish behavior triggered my past traumas. A person who hurts others and attacks without remorse to get their way. My anger, even after 2 years, hasn't faded. It still smolders within me. Shut up, leave. This is my house. Don't you dare take my things. Filthy thieves. Tyler lost control and started hurling garbage bags one after another. Among the trash are small appliances and fragile items. If hit in the wrong spot, they could cause serious injury. I'm not confident I could stay calm if something were to happen to my mother. I stepped back from the sidewalk, shielding my mother. It's impossible to persuade him like this. Let's go back home for now. Why the heck? Why not just dispose of his trash without his permission? As I vented my frustration on the way back home, my mother gently patted my shoulder. I'm happy you protected me, Maverick, but if we forcefully clean up against his will, he'll never change. It wouldn't solve the root problem. It'd just be a temporary fix like last month, only for the same thing to happen again. That might be true, but I understand what my mother means, but I can't imagine that a man as wild and uncommunicative as a beast would be open to persuasion. Tyler is a pitiable man. Really? How? He just looks like a selfish old man living in a trash house to me. After discussing and deciding to take some time before trying to persuade him again, we returned to the living room. As my mother arranged the small plates of snacks and teacups on the table, she began to explain Tyler's circumstances bit by bit. It seems Tyler was devoted to his wife, who has passed away. Originally a misanthrope and unfriendly, he seldom interacted with neighbors, but his affectionate relationship with his wife was often noticed. Apparently, Tyler has a son, but they've been estranged for over 10 years, and the son hasn't come home. After losing his only family, he started hoarding trash like that. Hearing her talk, I could feel some sympathy. He lost his beloved wife and is almost estranged from his son. Perhaps his loneliness drove him to madness. But that doesn't justify causing trouble for unrelated people and you, Mom. I can't easily forgive Tyler for that. Maverick, with a hint of sadness in her eyes, my mother looked at me and murmured, "Indeed." Even after that, she didn't give up on reconciling with Tyler. So, after my morning college classes ended, I agreed to accompany her again to persuade him. As usual, a foul stench lingered in front of Tyler's house, and the sight of garbage piled up like a wall was overwhelming, even though I had seen it before. It's no wonder people avoid getting close. "Ah, Mom, are you okay?" My mother stumbled over a garbage bag on the sidewalk, nearly falling, so I quickly grabbed her arm to support her. Beyond anger, a sense of resignation and sorrow welled up in me due to the difficulty pedestrians faced walking on the path. "Thank you, Maverick, I'm sorry. I was just spaced out." "Don't apologize. It's all Tyler's fault." The garbage bags at our feet were filled with miscellaneous items. Plastic cups and unidentifiable pottery. Just parts and junk, with no clear purpose. Many sharp and hard objects, dangerous if someone were to collide with them. "Mom, did you hurt your foot?" "No, I'm fine." Today, I was determined to give Mr. Tyler a piece of my mind, no matter what. And then, at that moment, what's this? Catching a glimpse of the contents of a garbage bag, I found an old glass-framed picture inside. It looks like an old photo. I think it's Tyler's wife when she was young. Inside the glittering glass frame was a photo of Tyler's wife, smiling gently. I can't believe it's in a garbage bag. Isn't she someone important to him? Tyler, who was said to have loved only his deceased wife. Now, he's a resident of a trash house, hooting garbage in front of his house and on the sidewalk, causing trouble for others. Maybe he himself has forgotten about it. My mother rummaged through the garbage and pulled out the photo frame from the bag. I leaned in to look into the garbage bag as well. And there, what I thought was just junk, the bag contained a pearl necklace, lipstick, and women's clothing. These shouldn't be just thrown on the roadside. I'll have a word with Tyler about this. Yes, we should give these to Tyler, for his wife's sake. My mother and I collected the bag filled with Tyler's wife's belongings and stood in front of his house. "You again. Enough is enough. If you keep lurking around my house and throwing away my important things, I won't let you off easy." Noticing us, Tyler came out, pushing through the garbage towards the gate. I presented the garbage bag we had picked up earlier. "This is important to you. then it should be kept inside the house, not left on the sidewalk. You can't complain if it gets collected. Shut up. It's just outside temporarily because there's no room inside. Tyler seemed to feel no guilt about leaving his personal belongings in a public space. He even argued that he was right, and anyone who disposed of his things was the criminal. Barely containing my anger, I turned to Tyler and said, "Look closely inside the bag." "What, Susan? Is that you? You were here all along." As soon as he noticed the photo in the bag, Tyler's expression and tone changed drastically. Life seemed to return to his bloodshot, bulging eyes. When Tyler lunged at me, yelling, "Give it back," I quickly hid the bag behind my back. "You're the one who left your wife's things on the roadside, right? Aren't you treating your important belongings like trash?" "What did you say?" "Next month, when the villagers call the cleanup crew, the bags in front of your house will be removed, and even your beloved wife's belongings might be discarded. If you don't want that, please clean up the sidewalk." "Shut up. Just give me back Susan already." Tyler, his face red with anger, grabbed the front of my shirt. Then my mother, who had been watching quietly until now, tapped Tyler on the shoulder and spoke in a soothing tone. "Tyler, your wife wants to return to your home. Why don't you clean up the items on the sidewalk for her? Then she can return home in peace." "Susan, everyone in the neighborhood knows Tyler's wife loved cleanliness. It was she who used to sweep the leaves from the sidewalk and clean in front of your house, wasn't it?" Hearing my mother's words, Tyler gradually calmed down. "I'll help you clean up. Keep your precious memories close. Do you want them to be treated like trash by someone else?" Tyler, crestfallen, took the garbage bag with the photo frame from my hand. He seemed to be somewhat receptive to what we were saying. As we started sorting out things to dispose of, my father, having finished work, joined in the cleanup. At this moment, with my new family and the lonely Tyler working together, I felt a sense of relief as if my murky emotions were being washed away. "Mom, Dad, I'm going to properly sort through my parents' belongings soon." "Yes, that would be good. Your parents would surely be happy about that, Maverick." Since my parents' passing, their belongings, packed in cardboard boxes, had been sealed in my closet. As I watched the sidewalk gradually getting cleaner, wiping sweat from my forehead, I felt a renewed desire to properly organize and cherish those memories. I was suddenly invited to the wedding of Mike, a classmate from middle school. At the wedding, Mike suddenly declared to me, "There's a world of difference between you, a high school grad and bachelor, and me. My wife is a famous actress, you know. You probably don't even have the chance to meet someone like her." It seemed like the bride, Sarah, overheard our conversation as she looked surprised. Mike, with a smug smile on his face, remained silent as I stood there. But just after that, Sarah made a shocking statement at the conclusion of her speech. "Chris, who played today as a friend of the groom, I have always wanted to meet you." The room immediately buzzed with subdued sighs and excited chatter. Mike, pale-faced, looked back and forth between me and Sarah, as Sarah continued to speak, her eyes brimming with tears. "My name is Chris. After graduating from high school, I was fortunate enough to find a job I love. Focusing too much on work, I missed the chance to marry and now find myself at 32 without a spouse. But I'm content with my life, doing what I love every day, and I don't feel too bad about it. Still, I can't say I don't feel a flicker of longing when attending friends' weddings. The wedding I attended today also gave me a lot to think about. After all, it was the wedding of a classmate from my middle school days. Mike, the groom, was in the same class as me during middle school. Mike and I were similar in many ways, both of us excelling in studies and sports. Top of the class again, Chris. I was almost overtaken by you this time, Mike. Unlike me, who grew up in a single-parent home and couldn't afford tutoring or extracurricular activities, Mike, who came from a wealthy family, was deeply involved in studying and club activities after school. Yet, he couldn't stand that I, doing nothing extra, was at the same level as him, and he always seemed to pick a fight. "I won't lose to you once we get to high school. I'll make sure you understand who's better." "Sure, looking forward to it." So, it was a surprise that I was invited to his wedding today. However, as we all reminisced with old middle school friends, I felt happy realizing Mike still considered me a friend. Later, Mike went on to attend a prestigious private high school and reportedly got into a top university. Consequently, the wedding took place in a beautiful hotel with marble floors, not far from the university. With about 30 minutes until the ceremony started. Thinking it would be hard to talk once the ceremony began, my classmates and I went to greet Mike in the waiting room. Because of certain circumstances, I have a disability and walked slowly into the room. Upon arrival, Mike greeted us with a happy face, welcoming the familiar faces of his classmates. "Thanks for coming today despite being busy, everyone." While we were catching up and laughing in a friendly atmosphere, Mike's mood soured as soon as he saw me. "I never thought even you would really come, Chris." "It's been a while, Mike. Congratulations on your day. I'm glad you invited me." I reached out for a handshake, but Mike just crossed his arms and started tapping his foot impatiently. I deeply regretted maybe upsetting him by barging into the waiting room with everyone before such an important event. "Sorry to disturb you at a busy time. Please take care of everything until the end." Despite my greeting, Mike didn't respond and just showed more irritation. I decided to leave the room without further ado. But as I walked down the corridor, I was stopped by Mike calling out from behind. "Hey, Chris, I heard from the other classmates. Did you not go to college?" With a clearly condescending smirk, Mike laughed at me. However, I didn't feel particularly upset. I've encountered plenty of people who changed their attitude once they knew about my educational background. But it was still a bit sad to be treated rudely by Mike, who went to the same middle school. "Yay, I didn't go to college. I had things I wanted to study, but due to circumstances and an injury to my leg, I couldn't afford to go." I tapped my thigh and responded, only to be laughed off by Mike. "Injury, can't afford it. Those are just excuses. If you had an injury, there are crutches or wheelchairs, right? And now you can walk just fine. You're just blaming your circumstances because you couldn't go to college. That's why you'll never make it." Criticized out of the blue, I could only widen my eyes and continue to listen to Mike's tirade. "After all, you probably didn't make enough effort to pursue higher education, right? Many people blame their lack of effort on a tough life or a flawed society, but I bet you're one of them. I, who worked hard and got accepted into a top university, can't understand such reasoning at all. It's been educational to learn that there are people who think like you. I've never once blamed my hardships on anyone else. And the reason I didn't go to college is, I thought about arguing back then and there, but today was a special wedding day. Thinking it was better to avoid unnecessary arguments, I gave a slight nod and turned my back. But perhaps Mike hadn't said enough, as he threw more words at me. If that's the case, I feel even worse for inviting you to such a grand wedding. It must have been difficult for you to give a wedding gift. But don't tell me you attended for free. Give me your bank account later. I'll transfer the wedding gift money directly. Actually, I should add a bit more for your travel expenses." I heard his laughing voice from behind. Unable to tolerate such disrespectful behavior any longer, I turned around, considering giving him a piece of my mind. But by then, Mike was already heading back to the waiting room, so I massaged the frown between my brows and returned to the chapel with my feelings of discontent. The ceremony ended without a hitch, and we moved to the reception hall. No matter how many times I attend, weddings are indeed wonderful. Even I, who had been in a foul mood, felt uplifted watching the bride and groom exchange vows, their emotions washing over me. Especially noticeable was the bride, whose beauty had all the guests sighing in admiration. Not usually one for TV or movies, I was unaware, but apparently, the bride is a famous actress. It's no wonder Mike looked so proud standing next to her. After the toast, I enjoyed a pleasant meal at the same table with my classmates. Then, the MC called for the next part of the event. It was our turn as classmates to take the stage. Now, we will have a band performance by the groom's classmates, including Chris, who have shared many moments together. Please give them a warm round of applause, the MC announced. As the MC spoke, everyone's gaze turned towards us. While we were getting ready with our instruments, I noticed Mike looking at us with a mocking expression. But I pretended not to notice and picked up my drumsticks. All the practice we put in for this day paid off, and the performance went smoothly. As we neared the end, each instrument had its moment to shine. But just as my drum solo was about to start, something unexpected happened. Right at the moment that was supposed to be my highlight, applause rang out. It was Mike clapping, causing confusion in the audience about whether the performance was over, and some started clapping along with him. Looking at Mike, I could see his smug, malicious smile. It seemed he had been waiting for the right moment to interrupt my performance. I was tempted to confront Mike, but I remembered that he and the bride were the stars of the day. Not wanting to spoil the ceremony, I stopped playing and waved my hands to the audience with my classmates. On my way back to our table, I caught a fleeting glance of the newlyweds, Mike glaring at me with a loathsome expression, and in contrast, the bride looking on with concern, as if she was trying to understand the situation. Perhaps it was my part in the performance that ended abruptly that worried her. The bride stared intently at me, as if trying to confirm something. It seemed I might have been disliked by the woman who became Mike's wife, but there was nothing I could do about it, especially with Mike himself treating me coldly. I returned to my seat, keeping my emotions in check. The ceremony was halfway through, and the bride left for a dress change. Despite everything, I felt relieved that our performance was over and started chatting and laughing about middle school memories and mishaps with my classmates at the table. Considering I might have drunk a bit too much in my enjoyment, I excused myself to my friends and headed to the restroom. On my way back to the reception hall, I crossed paths with Mike. "Man, that was quite the performance you gave, especially the part where it ended quickly. That was great." Mike sneered, delivering his sarcasm to me. I attempted to simply nod and pass by. I wanted to avoid any confrontation to not dampen the spirit of the wedding, but it seemed Mike had other ideas. "Hold up. No need to rush back, right? Or are you just eager to get back to the fancy meal? It must be exciting for you to taste such quality food with classmates," he jabbed sarcastically. His condescending tone infuriated me, but I restrained myself. How could someone, even as the groom, be so offensive? I wanted to retort but did not want a conflict. I nodded again and attempted to leave, but Mike wasn't done. "They say you're the company you keep, and frankly, it's annoying having a high school graduate like you show up. People's success or failure is determined by their surroundings. In that respect, I'm a winner, graduating from a top university and marrying a famous actress. You, on the other hand, are society's bottom rung. We probably won't have much to do with each other after this." I was at my limit, but remembered I am an adult now. With no intention of raising my voice or getting physical, I quietly informed Mike. "Understood. I promise, from today onwards, I will no longer involve myself with you and your wife." "That's right. Finally recognizing your place," he replied. After hearing my response, Mike left with a smug look on his face, barely containing his laughter. I returned to the reception hall with a heavy heart and was teased by classmates unaware of the situation. "Sorry, got lost in the hallway. Is it time for the bride's speech?" "Yeah, it's Sarah White, the too cute actress. You must know her, right?" "Sorry, I really don't, but I heard she's a famous actress. Can't miss that, I replied. Just then, the MC announced the bride, Sarah's entrance, and her upcoming speech. Sarah returned to the reception hall in a beautiful kimono, more stunning than any woman I'd seen, an aura befitting a famous actress. As she walked, our eyes met, and she blushed, looking nervously at me. Feeling utterly disliked made me feel incredibly empty inside. But since I had promised not to involve myself with the couple any further, there probably wouldn't be any more opportunities for conversation. As I was lost in these thoughts, Sarah stopped right in front of me, and the MC prompted Mike to escort her. It seemed that was a plan, and Mike approached my table with a triumphant look. Seeing everyone's eyes focused on Sarah's beautiful bridal figure, I whispered to Mike, "As I promised earlier, I will not have any further dealings with you and your wife. I wish you happiness." Remember those words. I'm on a different level now. My wife is a famous actress. You, a high school grad, could never have such encounters. He laughed. Sarah, overhearing our exchange, looked surprised. But there was nothing more for me to say. Mike, with a victorious smile, said to her, "You look especially beautiful today. Let's go." He took Sarah's hand and escorted her to the stand microphone. Mike's disdainful gaze, looking down on me, greatly disturbed my emotions. "Thank you all for being here today despite your busy schedules." Sarah began her speech. True to her profession, she spoke eloquently, her voice clear and easily understood. Even as Mike sent smug glances my way, my mind was clouded, but I listened to Sarah, knowing this was the last time I would have anything to do with Mike. Sarah spoke of her memories and gratitude towards her parents, and the heartfelt content made some in the audience sniffle. Although I am now recognized as an actress, many people have helped me to get here. I am grateful to everyone for their support. And there is someone I am most grateful to, she continued. At these words, everyone, including her parents and Mike, looked at Sarah curiously. "It's the man who saved me from a traffic accident when I was a child. Some of you might know that a distracted driver almost hit me when I was in elementary school," she revealed. This story seemed to be a well-known episode among those familiar with actress Sarah White. As several people in the audience nodded in recognition, Sarah continued her story. "The man who saved me by pushing me out of the way was hit by the car himself. He was injured, but by the time I was discharged and went to the hospital, he had already left. I wanted at least to know his contact information, but all I received was a message that he had simply done what anyone else would have done, and I never got to thank him in person. That's why I vowed to one day express my gratitude to him, thinking that if I became a well-known actress recognizable to everyone, maybe I could find him. That's why I've worked hard as an actress up until today." Sarah's tearful appeal spread surprise and excitement throughout the hall. It must have been the first time she had ever shared so much about her personal feelings. Even Mike, the groom, looked puzzled, but on the contrary, I felt a sense of disbelief rising within me. A high school boy who saved a young girl from a traffic accident. No, could it be just a coincidence? As I muttered this to myself and looked up, Sarah, the bride giving a speech, was looking straight at me. Then, with a mix of tension and joy on her beautiful face, she clearly stated, "The only thing I was told was the name of the person. The name that the nurse at the hospital told me was Chris Hamilton. It's Chris who played at today's wedding reception as a friend of the groom. I've always wanted to meet you." At that moment, the hall erupted in a mix of quiet gasps and excited chatter. Mike turned pale as he looked back and forth between me and Sarah, who, even through her tears, continued to speak. "Chris sacrificed his own legs to save me. I never thought I would meet him again at a wedding. Because of Chris, I am who I am today. I will never forget the life-saving act and the support you gave me to strive as an actress." Saying that, Sarah continued to express her gratitude towards me. Never expecting the story to be about me, I listened, bewildered, yet touched by her words of thanks. And as she spoke, I remembered the incident from that time. I was on my way home from high school, walking near the station when I noticed a car swerving and approaching in a serpentine manner. I watched it warily, thinking it was dangerous. Then, the car headed straight towards a young girl, apparently on her way home from elementary school. Instinctively, my body reacted, and as I pushed the girl away, I felt the full impact on my own body. When I came to, I was in the hospital and was informed that the girl I saved had only minor injuries, but in exchange, I had lost both legs below the knees. After that, I moved to a more accessible location, as my previous home was inconvenient for school. Though it was a severe injury, saving her was my decision. I moved without meeting the young girl, so she wouldn't feel burdened, not expecting that she would continue to be grateful for it until today. Afterward, I got custom-made prosthetics and was completely fascinated by their functionality and design. There are ones that look indistinguishable from real legs when I wear trousers, and elegantly curved carbon-made types for sports. Then, I decided to pursue a career as a prosthetist, creating artificial limbs and assistive devices for people who have lost limbs due to illness or accidents. I attended a vocational school instead of the university I initially aimed for, and after acquiring a skill, I founded a company that makes more fashionable and functional prosthetics based on customer requests. Thanks to its good reputation, the business has grown, featured in various media, leading me to where I am today. At that time, my parents tried to persuade me to attend a regular university, but I feel a sense of purpose in my current job. While I was reminiscing, Sarah continued her speech. I worked hard in dramas and plays, hoping to be able to thank Chris one day, but I learned from his classmates that Chris has now established his own popular prosthetic manufacturing company, helping many people. In both personal and professional aspects, Chris has always been ahead of me. It's a miracle that we could reunite like this. I feel I was told something earlier, but I want to express my gratitude to Chris from now on. Saying this, Sarah bowed her head, and tears fell from her eyes like pearls. When the speech ended, the hall erupted in thunderous applause. Beside the smiling Sarah, Mike's face was noticeably strained. As the reception ended and guests chatted excitedly on their way out, the MC prompted them to return home. I waited for everyone to leave before exiting the reception hall myself. Then, at the exit, I noticed the bride and groom and their families saying goodbye to the guests. As I approached, Sarah and her parents greeted me warmly, almost rushing over. But standing in front of Mike and Sarah, I reaffirmed my promise. I was surprised by today's speech. Just knowing that the little girl I saved has grown into such a remarkable woman is enough for me. Please let me thank you again. You are my savior, she insisted. But as I said earlier, I've decided not to involve myself with you two anymore, sorry. With that, I tried to leave. There's nothing more to say or hear. As I was about to leave the venue, Sarah wouldn't let me. Please wait. I can't accept this so suddenly. I have been working hard in the entertainment industry, taking comfort in the thought that one day I'd be able to thank you. Now that we've finally met again, you're saying we won't meet anymore. Can't you explain why? Or did I inconvenience you by mentioning your name without consulting you? It's not a nuisance, and I'm glad you remembered. But you should hear the explanation from Mike. Anyway, I'm going to disappear from you too. No, Chris is my life savior. I refuse to cut ties without properly thanking him. Sarah argued with a clear voice as if she were on a big stage, but I couldn't say anything. Then, it seemed Sarah realized the firmness of my decision. She turned to Mike and quietly asked, "Hey, explain what's going on. What did you say to Chris? Please tell me." Sarah's attitude, while quiet, was intensely angry, and Mike flinched. But he soon became defiant and, with a scornful look at me, began to speak. Because he's just a high school graduate with hardly any chance to meet women, right? If someone like him got involved, it might tarnish your reputation as a famous actress. So I just told him that a high school graduate with no prospects should stay away from us, that's all. That's outrageous. Didn't you hear my story? If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have become an actress. No, I might not even have been alive. Do you understand what kind of sacrifice he made to save me? I didn't know he was the one who saved you. I admit that was my mistake. But a low-educated man who's not popular with women is bound to mess up eventually. You'll thank me later for cutting ties early. The next moment, a dry sound echoed through the space. At first, it was hard to believe what had happened, but then Mike slowly looked at his palm. As soon as he saw what Sarah had slapped into it, his face turned bright red, and he began to yell. "What are you doing? Throwing the wedding ring back at me? You'll regret this. Apologize and rethink this right now. You're the one who should reflect. Do you judge people only by their education? Don't you understand how respectable and admirable Chris is? There are things far more important than just being good at studying. Stop this now." Sarah's father stepped in between. But then, lifting his face, he stared at Mike with an icy gaze. "Chris is our daughter's savior. Even knowing the circumstances, the ungratefulness you've shown is unacceptable. We need to discuss this matter with everyone." And so, we each left the venue amidst a tense atmosphere. The following week after the wedding, I was invited to Sarah's family home. Since the ceremony, Sarah had tried calling several times and messages had been left, but I had no intention of ever meeting her again. I never answered the calls displayed on my mobile screen. Every time I thought of the little girl I saved and her radiant smile at the wedding, I wondered if I should at least talk to her. But my pride held me back because of the promise I made with Mike. However, one day, I received a call from Sarah's father and responded to it. He invited me over to apologize for the recent events and to express his long overdue gratitude. "I'm sorry for intruding on your busy schedule, and I'm very sorry for the unpleasant experience at the ceremony. We owe you more gratitude than we can express, and yet this has happened." Sarah's father, who had no reason to apologize, kept saying sorry remorsefully, which made me quite embarrassed. And Sarah herself was also there, apologizing deeply. "I'm truly sorry for not stopping Mike's behavior at the ceremony. I am sincerely grateful to you. It's not something you two should apologize for, but I made a promise with Mike not to meet Sarah, so even being here feels like I'm breaking that promise. You're such an earnest person, not afraid to be at a disadvantage." With that, Sarah chuckled lightly. "After the accident, you didn't even take a word of thanks for me," she said. I was drawn into laughter as well, and the atmosphere lightened a bit. "By the way, where's Mike? Given he invited me, he wouldn't be here unless he changed his opinion. Perhaps he's at work today." And considering how much my presence had disrupted the wedding, I was also concerned about how well the two were getting on. We haven't seen each other since then. On the day of the wedding, I was kicked out of the house. When I said we needed to talk it out seriously, he sulked. There's no pickup from him, and I don't intend to contact him either. So now, I'm living alone in a room I rented for work. I wondered if I shouldn't have asked, feeling a bit uncomfortable. But Sarah seemed to be relieved. But it was a wedding supported and witnessed by many. Overcoming this should be possible. If we can't, it just means we weren't meant to be," she said firmly, looking straight at me. Her eyes showed a solid determination, but at the time, I didn't understand what kind of resolution she had made. Afterward, it turned out that Mike and Sarah chose to divorce. Knowing Sarah was serious, Mike apparently tried to plead and convince her with tears. But when she said she would listen to him only after he apologized to me, Mike suddenly changed his attitude and adamantly refused to listen, saying, "I don't apologize to a high school graduate and single man." His persistent fixation on education and lack of remorse prompted Sarah to make up her mind. She then packed her things on the spot and left Mike's house. Sarah visited my company and reported all of this with a smile. Chris, at the wedding, you said you wouldn't associate with us as a couple anymore. Now that I'm no longer Mike's wife, does that mean we can meet? She asked jokingly, then blushed and looked down. It was fortunate she looked away. If she had looked directly at me, she would have seen that I was blushing even more than her. Within half a year, I started dating Sarah. Later, I learned that Sarah had harbored feelings for me since she was a child. I thought I might never see you again and was ready to give up, but I'm so happy we could meet like this. Why are you crying? Because I know crying suits you too, but I always want to see you smiling. As I conveyed my honest feelings, Sarah turned bright red and gently grasped my hand. It had been a long journey, but it felt like I had gained something precious. Last week, I proposed to Sarah, and she accepted the engagement ring. The life I saved that day has now become my irreplaceable happiness. Hand in hand as a couple, we want to continue protecting this happiness.